one in the water?
The younger of my two sons, Brandon, was born on September 30th, 1985. Brandon was just a really good-natured young little kid, very friendly, very outgoing to embrace other children, and really never judged anybody. And as he got older, those attributes stuck with him. When Brandon turned 12, he started taking bass lessons. His brother Stephen had taken guitar lessons, so he just felt like he wanted to have his own instrument. And he was very dedicated to it. He had a lot of natural aptitude for playing the instrument. He got really, really good at it. In addition to that, he liked the outdoors. He liked to hike in the mountains and the desert. December 2003, I'd started a new job and was traveling throughout the state of California with my boss for a week. I came home on a Friday night, drove home, and as soon as I got there, the first place I went was straight to my son Brandon's room. Now, 9 times out of 10 on a Friday night, he'd be gone out to the movies or whatever with friends. But I opened his door and there he was lying in bed watching TV, propped up, and a big smile came across his face. So I went over and gave him a hug. And we didn't even say a word to one another. It was just kind of a homecoming sort of thing. Highly unusual, but very touching and in retrospect, very important to me. The next day was January 10th, 2004. I had gotten up, made my coffee, and Brandon was in playing his bass and he was on the computer. And then I went in and joined him with my guitar and he on his bass, and we practiced a few songs. And then shortly thereafter, he made mention of a hike that he and some friends had intended to go on. And I started just feeling uncomfortable with this idea of the hike. And it actually got to the point where I felt, and I don't claim to have visions or unusual paranormal type events take place, but I felt this kind of overwhelming feeling of like an energy. It was a feeling of impending danger, and it could even potentially take his life. And just before he left for the hike, the last thing I had said to him was, "Brandon, please don't go on the hike." And he said, "We're going, Dad."
A couple of friends had invited me to go hiking for the first time, hadn't hiked. And we first got on the trail, and my friend's name is Mike. He said, "Hey, you know, why don't we go up a different route instead of taking the marked trail?" And we also noticed some teenagers off in the distance were ahead of us. So we immediately were like, we got to beat them to the top. So we kind of had this little competition thing we were thinking in our heads. But along the way, we just periodically saw the teenagers, and it was Brandon and his friends. And we were almost to the peak, and we noticed we could hear real faintly off, like a, you know, help, like real faint. We looked over, and I saw on maybe a peak or two over, like I'm turning this way, he was like over there, and I saw him waving, like, I don't know if they were saying hello, whatever, you know, hi. We were kind of, and then the more I paid attention, the more it could tell they were in distress, and it was a help. We all decided, hey, you know, something's really wrong. We should go help. I saw Mike, and he had already gone over, and I noticed there's somebody laying on the ground, and he was waving and said, I could hear him say he's not breathing.
My phone rang and I thought, oh good, because I had left a note on the counter asking Brandon to call us when he returned home. But the call wasn't coming from the house, it was coming from my other son, Stephen, who was at work. And his message really shook me to the core. He said that the other boys who were hiking with Brandon were trying to call us at the house, but we weren't answering, so they called him, Stephen, I mean. And that Brandon apparently hadn't been feeling well and had been passing out on the mountain, and they needed help.
And I looked down, and it was Brandon, and his lips were purple. He was really pale. His shirt was up a little, and I noticed his stomach, and there was no movement.
We got in our car and started coming home as quickly as we could. It was a good 40 to 45 minute drive. And by the time we got up to the neighborhood at the base of the McDowell Mountains, there were a horde of spectators, ambulances, even helicopters and fire trucks.
I just remember the EMS guy looking at me and trying to like communicate because we didn't want to say to the teenagers that he was dead. So we just kind of kept it at that, and I don't know how to explain it, but just through our body language and his eye movement, I got the impression we should tell them to walk down, to go ahead and leave. It was okay, we were going to do everything we could to help.
The first person we were introduced to was a chaplain, and that didn't seem like good news to me. And it was probably within 20 minutes of that we were informed that Brandon had passed, which was a devastating thing for us and for any parent to go through. It's beyond words that I can use to describe the pain that we felt and the sense of despair at that moment.
I just couldn't believe it. I'm sitting here looking at a 17, 18-year-old kid dead. What can you say?
I had a lot of questions, as do many people, about concepts of life, death, and life after death, and conducted some of my own personal investigations through some of the top mediums around the world. I was uniquely qualified because my father was a famous psychic medium, Dr. Richard Ireland.
I've been in this business for a long time, and I work with a lot of people to do mentalist acts, and I don't think it's telling secrets out of school to say that most of them are demonstrations for entertainment. But in this case, what this man does just puzzles me completely, and of course fascinates all of us. Here is Dr. Richard Ireland. At this moment, as you can see, we have our ushers in the aisle collecting the notes from the members of our audience. We thought it was important that you at home see that so that you don't assume there's been any trickery in the handling of the cards. They are being picked up at this minute, taken directly from the people who have just filled them out. Therefore, it follows that Dr. Ireland cannot have seen them, as indeed he could not have done so. And they're being picked up by a member of our staff here, who all of us have in plain sight. And of course, you will recognize when you hear your own questions referred to. And as you'll see now, Dr. Ireland has begun the, perhaps we could even get a closer shot here on that activity, the task of covering up all the area around his eyes with surgical tape, which has the, for whatever the point is worth, the Johnson & Johnson label inside the little roll here. And
would you like to verify? I cannot see, Steve. Under, around?
Yes, that's absolutely clear. Again, let me, could you get an even closer shot? Because I think around the country people think, oh, he's peeking someplace. No, this is all covered, and it's right down here tight against the nose, so there's obviously no chance for light to get through there.
And would you tie me some bow knots back there?
All right. And this is a real thick blindfold. We checked these, too. The three of those, as a matter of fact.
It's amazing that even after I've put all this on, that certain skeptics who simply won't be convinced are inclined not to believe even then.
Huh. Well, I'm generally skeptical about such things, but you sure covered me the other night.
That's in case anyone thinks the holes are all lined up. Or that if, in fact, I might be peeking, and if the papers could be brought up here now, we'll get involved with those in just a moment.
Marty, if you, they're already here.
The other day I was accused of peeking out of here, Steve.
Yes, people actually have developed, they'll make up any theory to avoid thinking that...
Really, a lady told me that she thought I'd had a hole bored between my eyes and my nose and that I could see out of my nostrils. That's the truth.
Yeah.
And I want to say hello to Alan now. Alan like Debias, or Debais. Labas. Are you there, Alan? Did we get an answer?
He's up, yes.
Okay, because it seems to me as though apparently you're not from this area. Would I find you originally from New Jersey?
Yes.
Would it be Lodi?
Yeah.
And now you live in North Hollywood.
Yeah.
And it seems as though that you make a lot of mistakes when you write, and you've crossed them all out, and it looks really bad. Yes, and I do feel as though that apparently you want to know about someone else, so you're afraid that they're going to turn out to be an old maid. Is that right?
Yes.
I don't believe that you have to worry. Sharon's going to find herself a husband, all right?
Thank you.
Is there someone here with the name of Bob? Thank you, like Lindholm.
Yeah.
And Bob, it seems to me as though that you didn't come alone this evening. Did you bring a girl with you?
Yes, I did.
Yes. And are you and her sort of having a scrap or something?
No.
Well, I feel as though that you asked me on your piece of paper, does my girlfriend really like me?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Well, I think she really likes you. Is her name Kim?
Yeah.
You didn't put her name on your paper, did you?
No.
See, and I don't know you, do I?
No.
I just want to tell you that Kim really likes you.
Dr. Ireland, the panel, our guest members here are so impressed with what you're doing, they've asked if they could...
What's this?
That's funny. Just reached in my pocket and took out...
A $5 pound note?
Yeah. Wow. That's fantastic, because a while ago, Frankie Kapp, our drummer, remembering that the last time Dr. Ireland was on the show, he did something fantastic in identifying a $20 bill and giving the serial number. Frank said, I'll fix him. He's going to England in a couple of days. He said, I've already got some English money. This will fool him. And he didn't even, he reached in my pocket and took it out. That's pretty scary.
One of the first things that came into my mind after learning that Brandon had passed was I wanted to talk to my uncle and see if he could pull through any information, because he had the same abilities as my father. So when I spoke to him, he said, let me know if there's anything I can do for you. And I just said, if you get any message or you have anything that you can pass along about Brandon's well-being, I would really appreciate it. It was about a day or two later, I was in the mortuary making arrangements, and my cell phone rang, and my uncle was on the other line. And he said, Mark, there's something I wanted to tell you. I said, okay. He said, last night I tried to see if I could get anything, and I didn't get anything at all. But this morning I got up and was doing my meditation as I start every day. And during that, your father came to me. And he looked just like he always has. And I hadn't seen him in some time, but he has visited me since he's passed. And he wanted to let you know that he was there to meet Brandon when Brandon passed. And initially Brandon was confused, but your dad helped him adjust and to cross over. My uncle said, your dad said that Brandon's death was caused by a lack of oxygen that caused his heart to fail. Well, at that point in time, we did not have any results in terms of what had happened to cause Brandon's death. And it was within the week later on that I spoke to the autopsy physician, and she described the cause of death as a severe asthma attack that restricted his breathing, decreasing his blood oxygen levels, causing cardiac arrest. So my uncle was able to accurately confirm that validation or that information before the autopsy was even conducted. So for me, that was a strong start. Afterward, I began meeting with some other mediums. One of my tests was at the University of Arizona Human Energy Systems Laboratory, which is no longer functioning. But in that particular case, it was a single-blind experiment where the medium who was facilitating the process, Lori Campbell, did not know who I was, and I didn't even know who she was going to be until the process started.
Today, Dr. Schwartz is testing Laurie's unusual powers using volunteer sitter Mark Ireland.
The first question is, what does the deceased look like?
Child, I keep seeing brown hair because I keep feeling like I'm looking at outdoor pictures. Capturing a child outdoors.
Can he show you what was his cause of death? How did Brandon die?
God, I feel like the air is just like sucked right out of me, like my chest, my whole chest area. The weird thing is I feel like I want to throw up. It's like, and I keep seeing a tree planted. So I feel like there's things in his name or his honor. I don't know if it's a plaque on a wall.
After the reading, Laurie discovers how much of what she's seen is true.
Was there, by the way, a tree or something?
Yes.
There was a tree?
His school planted a tree as a memorial with a plaque there.
Wow, school with a tree and plaque.
She even accurately described Brandon's death due to an asthma attack.
His friend and him didn't realize it was asthma because the symptoms were different than any other asthma attack he'd ever had. And he did throw up just before passing away. I'd say Lori's accuracy was in the 70 to 80% range. It may end up being higher after I go back through some of that and take time to look at the names and things.
Near-death experience phenomena is another area of consciousness survival being explored. Dr. Pin van Lommel, Dr. Bruce Grayson, and Dr. Sabam are 3 researchers in this field. What has been uncovered in this sort of phenomena is the idea that people go through a death process, and then when they're revived, they report some unusual circumstances, such as going through a tunnel of white light, being able to hover over their physical body, looking down at the environment, and meeting deceased loved ones, with the choice to depart from the physical world or return to it. Skeptics have argued that the brain must still be functioning during this period of time, creating a hallucination or artificial experience. There are a few cases that challenge skeptics. One involved a woman named Pam Reynolds, who had a severe brain aneurysm. The only way the doctors could operate on it was to reduce her body temperature down to 60 degrees Fahrenheit and remove all the blood from her brain and body. They did this for about a 45-minute period, where there was no heartbeat and no brainstem activity of any kind. After Pam was revived, she reported hovering over her body and described in detail the instruments that she saw the doctors using on her. She was exactly correct. In addition, she reported meeting deceased loved ones and experiencing a feeling of warmth before drawing back into her body.
One of the primary problems with mainstream science in terms of looking at this sort of evidence is they want to see a theory that's testable. So they're ignoring the evidence because they feel there's no theory out there that they can test against. But I would contend that the universe is a mysterious place, and to just disregard evidence that leads to a conclusion or a possible conclusion is a mistake.
My name is Michelle Markey. I am a student at NAU up in Flagstaff, and I'm going to see a medium today apparently. His name is Jamie Clark. I've never met him before. I actually just found out his name today. So, and I'm kind of excited to see what he has to say. So, I'm not quite sure exactly what he might touch on, but my dad passed away almost 4 years ago, and then my great-grandmother passed away about a year after that, and so I'm thinking if there's anything that I'm expecting him to talk about, it would be my dad or my great-grandmother. Not crossing my fingers that anything will be correct, or he'll even get to talk to me about anything.
Jamie.
This is our test
Nice
lady.
to meet you.
Hi.
Chester, how are you?
Yeah.
Come on in.
And that's Ruben back there.
Hey, Ruben. What's up, man? And hopefully easy enough for you to...
Trying to fit through the door.
When you people come through, I have no control over who comes through or the information, but I'll always stay true to it.
Okay.
There is somebody who comes through that to me is 3 years or sooner has passed. Okay, so I hope you know nobody like that, but I'm not asking you, I'm telling you that's how clear they are. There's also what I feel like is a male father figure. So I hope your dad's still alive. And if he is, to me, father-in-law, stepdad, grandpa puts himself on a fatherly level, otherwise mom or dad lost a brother. Okay, but there's a father energy. And as this person comes through, I can't breathe. I get a real heaviness in my chest. To me, last stages of cancer, congestive heart failure, pneumonia, and I'm done. Okay, but I need to say thank you for helping. Okay? He makes me feel like you're never appreciated that way. He loves you. And he makes me feel like I'm sorry. Okay? Whatever that is.
Never said sorry a day in his life.
You need to hear. Okay, old dogs can learn new things. You've been wanting to hear. You talk all the time. Listen. Remember, communication is sending and receiving.
He's the one that came to me.
Okay, and then I'm going to have to go, yeah, the dad figure's coming through.
Yeah.
Okay, and again, either it's really good guesswork or just maybe there's something to it. I got to say, even as much as he tried, because I feel he tried, I just feel like,
Stubborn? Is that the word we're using?
Yeah, don't piss him off. Good guy, but he'll stand up, no problem.
Yeah.
I'll tell you like it is. Besides that, grandma. You got a grandmother figure who comes through. Very strong, very loving, though, very compassionate.
Yeah.
She comes through like the icon of the family. I feel like people will go to her Not that she knew everything, because she didn't, but she could speak from her own life experience. And she'd go, you know, here's what I did and here's how it turned out. I hope that helps. She comes through very gracious, but very powerful. Okay, because she'll tell you like it is, man.
Oh,
Boom.
yeah.
You know,
Wonder where the other one got it from, right?
That makes sense. That don't fall too far from the tree. But I will also say that there seems to be a reconnection for your dad and his family. Okay, and I'm sure that they had phenomenal relationships. But I will say on the heels of that, right, he now has the understanding that there's respect, appreciation, and validation. I need to say thank you for what you say. Okay, and to me, if you don't light candles, someone's known for lighting candles. Okay, so whoever that is, thanks for lighting candles. Funny, if you don't, you'll see.
That's hilarious.
Coming from your dad.
Oh my God.
Coming from your dad.
Well, because I go every year.
Kisses your... You hear him every once in a while too, okay? And you smell him, okay? Just a brief connect, but it's like, yeah, instantly gets you to mentally connect. Remember, mediumship is mental telepathy. That's it. Just sending and receiving information. I'm just slow, so I had to do it long enough to find out, okay, so that's what I'm doing. Because I always, you know, fine line between the insane asylum, honey, and doing this stuff. So it's that balance that, because I was always hearing things and I was always seeing things, you know, you start to think you're nuts, man. But thankfully, like your family, my whole family was intuitive themselves. So I always had my mom to work with me. So for, you know, 20 years, we studied all the different religions and thousands of books, and I wanted to understand where other people were coming from, so I had more of an affected well-roundedness to have compassion. How can I communicate if I can't even understand where the person's coming from? When they're on the other side, they reorganize that, meaning for us in the average human awareness, it is communication verbally. When you're doing it mediumship, it's mental telepathy. So they will shift from verbal words to feelings that shift into my English. I need all the help I can get, so I work with all the modalities. We're like tuners. You know, if you're tuning into one channel, that's beautiful, but you're kind of limited. You only have one channel. Nobody's the same physically. They're certainly not going to be the same metaphysically. So I need a variety of channels to be able to connect. Some like classic, some like jazz, some rock and roll. So when I do readings, you know, you'll hear me say, I feel this, or Dad's making me feel that. Like, that's, I don't know, but that's the language. So again, it goes around any roadblocks. It's that type of unlimited oneness. Okay, so those emotions, that soul connection, bypasses all the different languages and all the lack of comprehension and understanding and unifies you.
That was a really amazing thing. It was kind of really interesting to see or to hear him say things that totally made sense. When he was talking about my dad and my great-grandma, like, he nailed them to a T, their personalities, like everything about them. I'm not saying everything he said was 100% correct, but you know, the things that he did get right make me feel like the rest of it is likely to happen as well.
Empty space was once thought to be void of all energy, but actually it's been discovered that it's teeming with energy. And the space within spaces contains this energy as well. So if all in the physical world is made up of underlying energy, what's to say there aren't other dimensional realities paralleling ours perhaps, that are more subtle or invisible to our perception that exist just as well? And that could be perhaps the home of our spiritual self, the other part of us that does survive the death process. Everything in the physical world is made up of atoms. Atoms are made up of subatomic particles. According to string theory, which marries quantum mechanics and Newtonian physics, everything underlying the subatomic particles are strings of vibrating energy. So, and in accordance with Einstein's E equals mc squared equation, energy and matter are essentially interchangeable. So what that means is underlying everything that we see is essentially energy in vibration. So how it manifests to our eye or our senses is just a matter of perhaps the shape of the string and the level or the rate of vibration. So after going through this personal exploration, it's given me even more confidence that there is something after this physical life and that we do go on. But it's also added a deeper meaning to the life while we're here and the importance of living today to the fullest. And it's taken me from worrying so much about tomorrow and spending all my energy on worrying about a day that may or may not be here, and focusing more on today and the moment at hand, because ultimately that's what we have, and we're not guaranteed anything more than that. And I would just say that I'm a happier person, and I'm a more contented person than I used to be.
It's as if you've read my thoughts and